Hey everyone, it's Troy Jackson with this week's weekly update. Obviously this week we had a real tragedy in the town of Bowdoin. 4 members of a family were murdered and 3 others were severely injured on the highway. Bowdoin is just a short distance here from the capital in Augusta. I mean, it would be no different than me being in Allagash and something happening in Fort Kent. I mean, that's how close it is, and that's really what Maine is just a real big, small town. What we have is, a senseless tragedy that still trying to make sense of, still trying to understand and get the facts on, but I certainly want to make sure that people know that, here in the legislature and certainly for the Senate Democrats, we certainly feel that pain and are really saddened and unsure of what's next, but something obviously has to be next for issues like this, and more than anything, we want to make sure that the people in those communities know that we see you and we understand that this is a tragedy that shouldn't happen anywhere in this state and in this country. And so with that, I definitely want to thank all the community members that were involved when they found out, but certainly the law enforcement that dealt with all of that, had to deal with going to the home, had to deal with tracking down who perpetrated this and all of that uncertainty, and obviously on top of that, doing whatever they could to make the communities feel more at ease afterwards. That has to be an incredibly hard job for people to have to go through a situation like that. And so I definitely want to thank them for their service. This week, I introduced the bill LD 1597 that's been a culmination of a lot of conversations I've had with constituents over the years. People that were in the National Guard and served at a place called Gagetown in New Brunswick. And during that period, Gagetown actually had Agent Orange that was used there and probably some other chemicals that we're not really sure about. But all these Guard members that served there through a number of years were exposed to Agent Orange. And I've heard this, throughout, like I said, all the times I've gone door to door. I felt it was important to put in legislation so that we can get to the bottom of it, because the way things are for Guard members, if you haven't served during wartime, you don't get some of the help that people have received if they were in wartime. And clearly, these are people that served, the U.S. government, the state of Maine, and should have services, especially if they were exposed to these harmful chemicals. What we know is a lot of people that were serving there have either passed away from cancer and other, illnesses. And a lot of people, the cancer rate is very high for most of the people that actually did train there. So we had the public hearing, we had a number of people who spoke, the committee actually accepted it really well. I'm very hopeful that we're going to put together a commission that's going to get to the bottom of all this, actually maybe make some recommendations to help members that were there at that time. We know that some service members have been recognized as actually having exposure in the Canadian Guard, but not over here in the United States, and that's what this commission hopefully is going to get to the bottom of, and that's why I was really honored to be able to put that bill forward and hear some people that had really moving testimony about it.
We in the Guard signed the papers, pledged to serve, protect, and defend, just as our full-time counterparts did. But when that toxic environment reared its ugly head, we had nowhere to turn but our own resources.
So another bill that we presented this week was for the Northern Maine Medical Center. Northern Maine Medical Center gets what's called an enhanced rate for their inpatient psychiatric care. And the department has proposed what they're calling equalizing rates across the state. What that means to NMMC is a $2 million cut that would be devastating, for their bottom line. But even more importantly, NMMC is the only hospital that's actually doing these inpatient psychiatric care north of Bangor.
There is a rural factor that needs to be considered in recruiting specialized personnel. Between 2015 and 2020, there's been a decrease of 50% in the state of Maine alone in psychiatrists. So in order for us to recruit a psychiatrist, we have to pay higher incentives.
And so the bill that we put forward is to actually just keep the rates the same for psychiatric care. I mean, this is something that, will keep Northern Maine Medical Center operating, keep people that are in crisis having an opportunity to go somewhere. I mean, we clearly want to make sure that people that are having these issues, having these problems, aren't sitting in emergency rooms for days on end and not getting the care that they deserve. And I see no reason for the state to change this model that actually has been working quite well for everyone north of Bangor. So this bill, like I said, is going to keep those rates, and I'm really hopeful that we're going to get a really solid vote on that and be able to vote on it and keep Northern Maine Medical Center and the rest of the hospitals in the area whole. So another bill that we actually took the first votes on this week was to help redemption centers out across the state.
We don't have an expense that hasn't increased.
Redemption centers are on a system where they only get paid so much for each bottle that they redeem. They can't raise their prices. It's set in statute, and this bill actually would be a two-step increase. It'd give them a full penny by May 1st, another half cent in September. This is something that they need. I mean, we see the numbers of redemption centers that are closing around the state. I mean, I don't know how many people I've talked to in Mercer County about the problem.
We had over 300. We've lost 50 or 60 in the last year and a half.
And I think this is really important. I mean, we created this program way back, I think the late 70s, to try and help with the littering problem. But now, we have a system that is really great and it's important, and that's why we want to make sure that we get this rate increased so that these businesses remain viable. You see the bottles that aren't returned, that money is actually going to the beveragers. They're keeping that. It's what we call the float, and so there's enough money out there to pay for this increase. So we're hoping that we're going to get this passed. It's got emergency enactor on it, so as soon as it passes, it'll go into effect, and hopefully over the next week or so, we'll have that passed on the governor's desk. And with that, it's been Troy Jackson once again with this week's weekly update. Certainly look forward to seeing you next week, and take care and be well out there.